Hey, good morning. Happy Monday. Happy day after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl Monday. Um, I'm actually recording this almost a week in advance, so I'm picking the Chiefs. So if you're listening to this and the Chiefs lost, well, joke's on me. But hey, if they win, all right, so much the better. And so I want to talk this morning about relationships. You know, there's an old song, I think it was maybe first recorded by Willie Nelson, but later recorded by Ray Stevens, and it's a hilarious song. And I'll read you a little bit of the lyrics here. It says, "Now, many years ago, when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was as pretty as could be. This widow had a grown-up daughter, had hair of red. My father fell in love with her, and soon the two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and changed my very life. My daughter was my mother because she was my father's wife. To complicate the matters, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to Dad, and so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. And if he was my uncle, that also made him the brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother." And so then it goes on to say that I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. And so it just goes on from there. And so talk about a complicated family relationship. We're going to talk about relationships, but not necessarily those types of relationships. But you think about the humanity, mankind, we need relationships. You know, God determined in the garden for Adam to determine for his own self that it was not good for man to be alone, and he brought all the animals before Adam, if you remember, in Genesis chapter 2, to see what he would name them, and whatever he named them, that was their name. And he saw there was not one that corresponded to him. And so God decided to make a helpmeet for him, to make a woman to be with him. So he needed that relationship. He needed a relationship because we are social beings. You think about someone who gets locked in isolation in prison, or gets put on washes up on a deserted island all by themselves. They're lonely. It's unbearable. It may be the worst part of that kind of thing is the isolation. None of us really can truly be a human in isolation. It's really hard. The quality that makes the human emerge only in ways that when we relate to other people. We are social beings. God is a social being. He created man so that he can have a relationship with him. He is a social being who longs for a relationship with us, and one who teaches us in his word how to form and flourish in our relationships. And so you think about the Bible, and it deals with relationships, man's relationship with God, and man's relationship with his fellow man, with his family, with his co-workers. In every aspect of life, we have relationships. And so the Bible teaches us a lot about relationships. Overall, again, this book is about man's relationship with God. But throughout, we read about how we can have relationships with other husbands and wives and parents and children, employers, employees, and things of that nature, even with the civil governments. And so when we think about relationships, we see in Luke chapter 10, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, we see some things about relationships that I think are important for us to recognize. And I'm going to pick it up in verse 25, and it says, "And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said unto him, What is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answered and said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus, Who is my neighbor? And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. And Jesus said unto him, Go, and do thou likewise. And so we have this man. He's traveling a dangerous road from Jerusalem down to Jericho. From the top of the mountain down to the river valley. It's a long and winding, narrow road. It was apparently inhabited by bandits and wild animals, and so it was a dangerous journey. And this man took it for whatever reason, business or whatever. He was traveling, and these thieves, they attacked him. And so we see these thieves and their philosophy, you might say, about life, and that is, what is yours is mine. You know, a lot of people have that attitude. They may not literally rob someone and steal their belongings, but they have that outlook that what is yours is mine, or what you have, I should have as well. And so there is envy, and there is strife, and there is all kinds of things that deal with greed and the lust of things that your neighbor has. And so what is yours is mine is the attitude of the thieves. The other attitude we see is the priests and the Levites, or the priest and the Levite, and their attitude is, what is mine is mine. I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not going to even give you my time. They passed by on the other side. They weren't guilty of doing anything wrong, but they were guilty of not doing anything that was right. They did not look after the one who was in need. They did not lift a hand to help. And so they were not guilty of necessarily doing wrong, but you know, James chapter 4:17 says that to know to do right and do it not, to him it is sin. And so what is mine is mine. That's what the majority of people seem to have. And then we see the great attitude of the Samaritan. What is mine is yours. You know, he recognized that he has a responsibility to others, even strangers. Even one who, you know, might have been his enemy. He is a Samaritan passing through the region of the Jews. And so the Jews and the Samaritans, they hate each other. So likely he understands this man is a Jew, one of the hated enemies. He doesn't see a hated enemy, though. He sees someone who needs his help. And he takes the time to take care of his needs, to leave money to make sure that his needs were met even after his departure. And so that is the attitude that is most Christ-like. That is the one who is truly the neighbor. That is the one who has that right idea of his relationship to his fellow man. And as Christians, that is the attitude that each one of us needs to adopt, to look at the needs of others above ourselves. So let's not have the attitude of the thieves, or the philosophy of the thieves, what's yours is mine. Let's not have the attitude of the Jewish priest and the Levite, what's mine is mine, but let's have the attitude of the Good Samaritan and go and do good unto others. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. Go Chiefs.